In this lecture, we're going to talk how to paint reflective or shiny surfaces. Now, this can be anything from a really shiny plastic to metal, like a chrome type thing, but either way, it's going to be essentially the same technique. So what we're starting with here is going to be this gray cube. Doesn't have to be gray, but I'm going to do as if this is chrome. Okay, I'm actually going to go ahead and start by darkening the cube quite a bit. Okay, then we're going to go ahead and make a new layer, and this layer is going to be what we're painting our reflections on. Now, we're going to start off with a pretty bright blue start, and we're going to just do the front face first to get an idea of what this is going to look like. So, starting up here, oops, we don't want that. Let's make sure we have our cube selected again. And the brush I'm going to be using is just the regular old soft airbrush with no modifications. And I am going to start painting in the front half of this cube. Okay, now I'm painting in the sky here, and that might be a little bit too saturated actually. Let's change that up. That's better. So I'm painting in the sky, and as it gets closer towards where the horizon is going to be, I'm going to bring it even brighter to almost a white. That's a little bit too bright. And this is going to be the reflection of what we're seeing here in this cube. Okay, so I have that. I'm going to bring in the medium brush because we want to get a little bit tighter here when we get to the horizon. So for the horizon, you can kind of paint in whatever you want. I'm going to go with like a deserty sort of landscape with, you know, browns and tans and stuff. Okay, so we'll just finish painting this in. So the ones along the horizon are going to be the lightest, but then it's going to get a lot darker as it gets closer. And I'm going pretty rough here, but if you really want to make this look photorealistic, then what you would do would be to really make sure you get as detailed as you can in the reflection. But we're not going to worry about that for this because we just want to get the idea across. And then the darkest for the last one. Okay, and you know, if you want to add any cactus or bushes in there, whatever, if you wanted some spots that are a little more green, you can do whatever you want in there, change things up. So anyways, I'm not gonna worry about the green because I'm just gonna keep it simple, but there we go. That's good enough for our first side. Now we're going to need to decide what layer we want this to be on, what layer mode. We can do normal, that's an option, but it might be better if we did something like screen or lighten, possibly overlay. But for now, we're going to try normal and see how that ends up looking. So we have this here. Now we need to do the other sides, okay? So this one is facing outward, so it's going to be facing, you know, reflecting most of the landscape that it sees. The top is going to mostly be just reflecting sky, okay? However, along this edge right here, okay, that edge is going to, because it has a curve, it has that curved shape, it's going to reflect differently than everything else, right? If you've looked at metal before that's not just flat like a mirror, it distorts and warps everything that it's looking at. So what's going to happen actually is that it's going to repeat everything that we just did down here, only much, much smaller. Okay, so right along that edge is where we're going to see this same image repeated but smashed down so that it's really, really thin. Okay, so that's what I'm going to do. I'm just going to essentially repaint everything that was on that ledge down there. Okay. Alright, then we'll get that next color we had. just paint that all the way across. And then after this, the last sort of tan color. Okay. And then we'll just have to paint the sky in as it reflects onto the top of the cube here. All right. Perfect. And then the sky, we're gonna start with the light part down here. All right. So there we go. Next, I'm going to first select this so we're not painting outside the shape of our cube. And we're just going to begin to fill this in over here. Sky. Okay. And then it will pretty quickly fade to the rest of this blue. Okay, and I'm just taking my eraser and cleaning up some of these edges here. Okay. There we go. So that looks pretty good so far. Let's do this last side. And this last side, we're going to keep it pretty dim because it's in the shadow, but it will be reflecting a little bit. So I'm just going to have it be going from the top, and it will start to come down a little bit, but sort of fade towards the bottom. Like that. All right, there we go. Okay, so that looks pretty good. Now I'm going to take my eraser tool, and because of the way the properties of light work, towards the bottom we're going to have it so that there's a little bit less of this light coming from the bottom, and it kind of loses its reflectiveness as it goes down. It's a little bit too much, but we do want it to. There we go. Okay. So there's our cube, and if you want, you can adjust the opacity if it feels a little too strong, or you want some more of the underlying aspects of the cube to show through, but I think that looks about right for us. So I'll leave it about 84%. And now we're going to add the highlight. So on a new layer, this one's just set to normal. I'm going to go all the way white and make sure that I'm using, we're going to do this. So make sure your opacity is all the way up. We're on a new layer. We're going to select the lasso tool, and this is what we're going to use to create our highlight. So right here along this edge, I'm going to create a shape using my lasso tool. It's going to be this long sliver shape, and you got to fill that right in with white. Same thing over here. Oops. Okay. And do just a few more shapes. A little bit along this edge. Okay. And then also I'm going to select the cube layer, and we're just going to feather in a little bit along this back edge. Oops, we're on the wrong layer. I was like, why isn't that showing up? Let's try that again. Come back here to our highlight layer. There we go. So along this back edge, we're going to really light it up. There we go. Okay. So now that we have these really sharp lines, we're going to take our smudge tool and just soften them up a little bit. First though, I'm also going to use my eraser tool to soften up the edges so it kind of fades like that. Okay. Now we could take our smudge tool and just soften these edges, straighten out these lines a little bit. Okay. You still want them to be somewhat crisp, but maybe just not as crisp as we originally had them. Okay. And then you can add, if you want to go back and add any other little tiny spots of brightness. Okay. Then we're also going to add, I'm going to bring my soft airbrush out, and I'm going to have a really bright spot right here on the side of the cube, where maybe like the sun is shining through. Okay, and then we can mimic that up here as well. Okay, add a little bit of a glow to some of these highlights over here. And there you go. That is how you paint a shiny or a reflective surface. So that's it for this lecture, and I'll see you guys in the next one.